The issue is at the moment that they're not able to make that call.
So there was nothing. Sorry.
And I think, I was just going to say, and I think the longer it goes on, the more it's going to have to be that we just say, keep the status quo.
Yeah. And actually, if we actually do have to keep the status quo in terms of the teams, but go down to just a regular home and away format, it actually gives the fans an opportunity to kind of put their money where their mouth is, sort of thing. And if they're all bitching and moaning about, I don't go to games now because we play the same team too many fucking times, well, actually, you won't be doing that next year. So go and support your club, make all the attendances better, and everyone who's, and then then the club owners can stop their whining about how much money they need to make from these extra games, and everyone actually might be happy.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen, is it? This is rugby league.
Right, so there wasn't anything we picked out as noteworthy on the 30th of April, but on the 1st of May there was quite a bit. So, Sarah, do you want to tell us the headlines from the 1st of May?
Yeah, so on the 1st of May, it was announced that Rugby League in England will receive £16 million in government loans to help it recover from the impact of the coronavirus pandemic. RFL Chief Executive Ralph Rimmer asked for assistance after the suspension of the game on the 16th of March. Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden said that the government had intervened to protect an entire sport. The sport is seen as a special case because of its social value in many northern communities and the risk of it being wiped out. All England-based Super League and second and third tier clubs, many of whom have charitable programmes helping people in their areas during the pandemic, will be entitled to apply for money from the government fund.
I'm going to say something that I wouldn't imagine myself normally saying, but Ralph and his colleagues at the top of the RFL deserve some credit here, because the message that they've been pushing home since the start of this crisis is the message that's delivered this, albeit potentially short-term because it's a loan, or this short-term relief for the sport. So you've got to give him some credit for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we all know we're a resilient sport.
Over 125 years.
Yes.
And the stuff that the RFL are doing with the what RL means to me kind of campaign and those sorts of things. I mean, when I watched that promotional video for that, to be honest, it actually made me well up a bit and made me feel really proud and emotional about our sport. And even though it included some people I don't like in their comments and stuff. So there are some things that the governing body seem to be getting right at the moment.
Shh, don't say it too loudly.
Well, the questions will still come because this is a loan,
and how do we pay it back?
We
and
don't
when?
know the terms of the loan, but we're led to believe it's fairly favourable. So we don't know the ins and outs of that and what will happen in the passage of time. But at the moment, we have to figure out how this is going to be divided out, and we don't know too much about that yet. So I suppose once the applications are in and we figure that out, it'll be that's how we can judge this. It's how well the 16 million is used.
Yes.
If we still have the 12 top tier teams afloat, if we still have every club in the Championship and League One in the same position in terms of their ability to play at their current stadiums, and if we still have, community clubs being able to run all age groups that they run currently, I think then it's been distributed successfully, but we won't know that for a while, unfortunately.
No. Well, and it might even be years down the line before we actually see the impact.
Yeah.
It was also announced on the 1st of May that NRL players will return to training on May the 4th, which is today, as we record it, ahead of the competition's return to action on May the 28th. Players return to their clubs today for a biosecurity education day, with full training taking place from tomorrow. Now, that sounds like a fun thing to do, doesn't it?
I wish, why couldn't they roll out the programme for everyone and we could all find out about biosecurity? That'd be a nice thing for everyone to experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in exclusive news. I've actually seen it, and it's one slide, and it says, "Just don't be a dickhead."
Fuck! None of the NRL players are going to have been able to follow.
I was going to say a few of our players quite need that, then, don't they?
Yes.
There was another story as well from the 1st of May actually, but it was only probably widely reported today, but the RFL reported on the 1st of May that community clubs are on track to receive in excess of £1 million in funding support to help them deal with the current pressures and protect their clubs in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. Mark, he didn't specify where the money was coming from, so Mark Loverin, RFL Participation and Development Director, said that $750,000 had already been received by community clubs from a variety of national and local initiatives and emergency funding. So I'm taking from that it's not just come from the RFL, it's come from things in their own local areas and things like furlough schemes and loans as well from the government and things like that potentially. But Mark Loverin confidently predicted that the total figure will exceed $1 million in support for the grassroots, with the RFL continuing to work with the clubs to help them access what support is available. That's really positive for the community side of the game, one of the parts that we really do need to make sure stays in vibrant health through all of this.
Definitely, yeah.
Yep. On the 2nd of May, the NRL confirmed they'd overcome a major hurdle in securing the start of their season on the 28th by the New Zealand Warriors being granted permission to travel and enter Australia by the Australian government. And I believe they have already landed.
Yeah, the most optimistic photo I saw, well, not the most, the photo that gave me the most optimism that I saw over the weekend was the plane coming into land photograph that someone took of the Warriors plane. It could have just been any plane coming into land. I didn't even know if it's the right airport, do I? But it made me feel like, oh good, we've got something coming.
Look, there's a plane!
Yeah. I know. I sound stupid when I was just saying it. I didn't realise that. Yeah.
How stupid you sounded.
Yeah. Some other people who potentially were stupid but looks like they got away with it was South Sydney Rabbitohs players. The South Sydney Rabbitohs issued a statement confirming that 3 of the players they sent home from training and got tested for coronavirus after displaying symptoms have all come back negative. Obviously some of their players have broken the quarantine rules and the social distancing rules in Australia, so hence the idiot comment. This action was taken immediately following all NRL players returned to their club spaces today in order to recommence training in preparation for the 28th of May season restart. So obviously that it's a positive that the players that are getting tested are coming back negative, because otherwise if some players turned up with symptoms and then everyone else started getting it spreading throughout the camps, then 28th of May ain't going to happen, is it?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because just before we started recording, I was just having a quick look, and obviously the German Bundesliga's back in training.
Yeah.
And I noticed that a couple of their players have tested positive, but because of their biosecurity approach to it, they're doing the things like isolating and that kind of thing. So even if a player was to be tested positive, it doesn't necessarily indicate a kibosh to the season. It just means that that's the whole point of a biosecurity approach, is that
the app that tracks the sort of movements and that sort of stuff. It's
about limiting the spread, isn't it? And that's what the whole biosecurity approach to it is. It's not saying that it's impossible. It's minimising the risk of it ever happening, and if it does happen, minimising the risk of it spreading. So,
but in Australia at the moment, they're not testing everyone, are they? Like I think are doing it the Bundesliga.
Not yet, but I would be surprised if that wasn't the plan with their.
They've got 2 weeks, haven't they, to kind of put those programs in place, I suppose, because the Warriors can't sort of get involved with stuff for 2 weeks, can they? Because they're quarantined because of coming in from abroad. So
yes.
Anyway, that's
we'll see.
That's the news, and some positive signs of a return to some live rugby league action for us to talk about. But we're now going to skip on to talk about some live rugby league action, as we've got a match review to go through. Match reviews time then. We have one in from the listeners this week. It came from Joshua's granddad, aka Sarah's dad, aka John Scotter, and he reviewed the 1970 Cup final, which finished Castleford 7, Wigan 2. John said, Defence is on top in a game marred by ref Fred Lindop failing to send off Keith Hepworth for an assault on Colin Tyra when scores were 2-2. Loss of Tyra forced a reshuffle of the Wigan, which allowed Lowndes to score the only try of the match. Despite position and possession favouring Wigan, the lack of guile spoilt Wigan's chances. Castleford Pack smothering all Wigan's attempts. So obviously their violence and cheating was what Castleford were up to. No, but it's good to hear about some of the old ones. I mean, Rugby League Cares has been showing a lot of old footage as well, which has been fantastic every day on their Facebook page. So lots of opportunities to catch up on some old stuff, and that's great for people to remember. So thanks for getting in touch on that one, John. Alan, you've watched a couple of old matches this week that you were going to tell us about.
Both games that I watched were from 2010. And they were both basically a week or 2 weeks apart. Basically, they were one was a week after Daisy had been born, and I was supposed to be going to the game, but it was actually I actually watched it on television. So I was remembering watching it on television at home, and it was Cass at home, and it was absolutely freezing cold. And we won that one.
As you weren't there.
No, but well, it's amazing. It's amazing what happens on Sky Sports. But no, as is the case with all clubs' own YouTube channels, they only show games that they win.
Yes.
So we all know that. So it was the win against Cass, which probably Richard Owen really badly injured his leg in that game. So that tells you something about that game.
Yeah.
And the other one was the Bulls against Wigan match from the same year, where we kind of came back and beat you late. And the reason it really rings a bell for me is we were in the midst of Bath and Daisy. We just got home, and I had a baby in my arms, and Matt Alford went through to score, and it was trying to be excited about winning whilst holding a week-old child is a memory that will stick with me forever.
Don't drop the baby.
I didn't.
Well done.
And that was probably the only good thing that Matt Orford did in a Bradford Bulls shirt.
That game was the one game that he really it was a really good game. He scored 2 tries in the match, and he was outstanding. But yeah, he disappeared soon after that. Yeah, that's what I've seen.
Yeah. Both happy memories from Bradford Super League days. Where were you at in the sort of cycle of ownership at that stage?
Oh, I forget. It was prior to. I think Hud was still in charge. It was prior to that kind of stuff all kicking off.
I remember that'll have been one of the few occasions that former co-host Tom would have been having a happy journey back across the M62 in the shared car with like 4 or 5 Wigan fans and him.
Yeah, it was kind of we'd brought a few players in from Manly, so we brought Matt Orford in. Heath Lestrange had just signed. Brett Carney was still there, so we were still spending money we didn't have, which was the problem.
Yeah.
But as a result,
people who didn't work out in Matt Orford's case. Like the other two actually turned out to be decent players for the club for a few years, didn't they?
This is the thing. I mean, early on in 2010, actually, when you looked at the squad, we had a half decent team, and it was what could have been. I think if we'd kept that team together, but coulda, woulda, shoulda.
The only full game rewatch I've done this week was the 1991 World Club Challenge, 1991 World Club Challenge, Wigan against Penrith at Anfield, where the French referee had a shocker, but it certainly benefited Wigan in the early stages, and then swung round the other way sort of towards the game. But Wigan had probably just about controlled things at that stage. But yeah, that was an interesting game to watch. It was when they still were playing it forward to themselves, Sarah. So you're right. It went into the 90s. There was a few hot moves of that variety. But yeah, it was. You did start to see the pattern of play be a little bit more how it is now compared to, say, when I watched some games from the mid-80s in the last few weeks. But it was still a lot deeper. The play was still a lot deeper away from the ruck each attacking move, because it still was the 5 meters and stuff.